Part 2. Onome sat at the bar long after Chukwudi left, her fingers nervously tracing the edges of the card he had handed her. What have I gotten myself into? She wondered. The weight of Chukwudi's warning settled like a stone in the pit of her stomach. For the last 7 years, she had lived in a world of certainty, or at least she had believed she had. Kobe was everything she thought she wanted, successful, charismatic, devoted, but now, cracks were beginning to show in the carefully constructed facade of their marriage. And the more she stared at those cracks, the deeper they seemed to run. Her phone buzzed on the counter, breaking her trance. It was Kobe. Just finished, on my way home, don't wait up. She read the message twice, her pulse quickening. The last thing she wanted was to be at home waiting for him, not now, not when she knew something darker lurked beneath the surface of their lives. Her mind raced, cycling through the possibilities. Chukwudi's words echoed in her mind. Kobe's been involved with dangerous people. What could it possibly mean? Kobe was a businessman, sure. He had his dealings with powerful people, but that was the norm in their world. Dangerous people, it didn't seem to fit. Or did it? Onome glanced around Dante's lounge, suddenly feeling exposed. She had come here to find answers, but all she had now were more questions. She needed to think, to clear her head, to piece together the fragment of the puzzle that had been thrown into her lap. She picked up her phone again and dialed the number on the card. It rang once, then twice before a deep voice answered. Chukwudi. I need to know more, Onome said, her voice firm. I need to know what's really going on. There was a brief pause on the other end. Are you sure you are ready for that? Once you step into this, there is no going back. She hesitated for only a second before responding. I'm already in it. I just don't know how deep. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. at Blue Ivy Cafe in Lekki and come alone. The line went dead before she could respond. Onome stared at her phone. She knew she would feel fear. Any normal person would. But more than fear, she felt determination. She needed to know the truth, no matter how dark it was. When Onome returned home that night, the house was quiet, too quiet. She slipped out of her shoes and tiptoed silently through the darkened hallway. Kobe's car was in the driveway, but the house seemed eerily still. She knew he was inside, but he couldn't bring herself to face him just yet. She couldn't bring herself to face him just yet, not with so much going in her mind. Instead, she retreated to the guest room and sat on the bed, staring at the walls. Every memory she had of Kobe seemed tainted now. Every smile, every touch, every whispered promise. Who was the man she had married? What secret was he hiding from her? The minutes dragged into hours, and finally exhaustion overtook her. She lay back on the bed, her eyes heavy with sleep, but her mind refusing to rest till she finally drifted off. The next morning, Onome left the house early, sleeping out before Kobe had even woken up. She couldn't face him, not with everything she had learned, or rather, everything she had yet to learn. She needed clarity, answers, and Chukwudi was the only one who could give them to her. Onome arrived a few minutes earlier, feeling nervous. She ordered a glass of juice and sat at the corner table, scanning the room with her eyes for any sign of Chukwudi. He arrived precisely at 10 a.m., just as he had said he would. He was dressed casually in a black shirt and jeans, looking handsome. There was intensity in his eyes that made her heart race. He sat down across her. And for a moment, neither of them spoke. Thank you for coming, he said. Finally, his voice low and steady. Onome nodded, her hands wrapped tightly around her glass. I need to know the truth, Chukwudi. All of it. He leaned back in his chair, studying for a moment before he spoke. Kobe is involved in something dangerous. He's been working with a man named Fabian, a notorious criminal who operates under the radar. Fabian runs a network that traffics everything from illegal goods to people. And Kobe, your husband, is right in the middle of it. Onome felt the blood drain from her face. This was a nightmare. Why would Kobe get involved in something like that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Money, power, influence, Chukwudi replied. The usual reasons. Fabian promised him a seat at the table, and Kobe took it. But now he is in too deep, and there was no easy way out. Onome's hands trembled like someone who had tremor as she set down her glass. The room seemed to spin around her as she tried to process everything. What do I do? She asked, her voice shaking. How do we get out of this? Chukwudi leaned forward, his eyes locking into hers. You need to be careful, Onome. Fabian and his people, they don't leave loose ends. If they even suspect that you know what's going on, you will be in danger. You need to protect yourself, but you also need to be smart. Play along, act like everything is normal, but keep your eyes open. Onome nodded. She felt like she was in a bad dream, one she couldn't wake up from. But she knew she had to stay strong. She couldn't afford to break down now, not when so much was at stake. Is there anyone that can help? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Chukwudi hesitated for a moment before replying. There is a woman named Fatima. She used to work with Fabian, but she got out. She knows more about this network than anyone. If you can find her, she might be able to help you. Where can I find her? Onome asked. I paused quickening. She's in hiding, but I have a contact who can reach her. I'll set up a call, but remember, Onome, this is a dangerous territory. You need to be careful. Onome nodded. She had stepped into a world she didn't understand. A world of power, corruption, and danger. But she couldn't turn back now, not until she knew the full truth as she left the cafe. Not until she knew the full truth. As she left the cafe, her mind was full of thoughts. She had to play the role of the unsuspecting wife, all while digging deeper into the dark water her husband was entangled in. Every step she took from here on out was a step into the unknown, and one wrong move could cost her everything. Onome drove through the winding streets of Lekki with her mind in turmoil. The revelations from Chukwudi had shaken her to the core, leaving her almost in panic. She had always prided herself on her composure, ability to remain calm in the face of adversity. But this was unlike anything she had ever faced. She needed to get a grip on her emotions before returning home. Kobe couldn't suspect anything was wrong. She had to keep up appearance, pretend that everything was normal. But as she neared their mansion, a gnawing feeling of dread settled in the pit of her stomach. Could she really pretend, knowing the man she loved was entangled in a world of crime and danger? She parked in the driveway and took a deep breath before stepping out of the car. The house loomed ahead. It was hiding secrets she wasn't sure she was ready to confront. As she walked the door, she could hear voices coming from inside. Kobe's deep baritone and a lighter, unfamiliar tone. She entered the living room quietly, not wanting to interrupt the conversation. Kobe was standing by the window, his back to her, speaking with a man she didn't recognize. The man was tall, with striking features and an air of arrogance around him. He exuded a sense of power that made Onome's skin crawl. Kobe turned as she entered, his face lighting up with a smile. "You're home early," he said. The other man turned to face her, and for a moment, their eyes locked. Onome felt a chill run down her spine. There was something unsettling about the way he looked at her, as if he could see right through her. "This is Fabian," Kobe said, gesturing toward the stranger. "He is an old business associate. He will be staying with us for a few days." Onome's heart skipped for a bit. Fabian, Fabian, the name Chukwudi had warned her about. If she ever had any doubts about Chukwudi, it was now evident that he was telling the truth. She couldn't believe her eyes. The man at the center of the dark world Kobe was entangled in was standing in her living room, smiling at her as if they were old friends. She forced a polite smile, trying to hide the fear that was building inside her. "Nice to meet you," she said, her voice steady, despite the turmoil raging in her mind. Fabian smiled back, but there was no warmth in his smile. That was a cold smile. "The pleasure is mine, madam. Kobe has told me so much about you." Onome's stomach churned as though she was experiencing indigestion. Onome felt like she had to Onome felt like she had to get out of there, away from the oppressive presence of Fabian. I need to freshen up, she said quickly, turning towards the stairs. I'll be back in a moment. As she hurried up the stairs, she could feel Fabian's eyes on her, watching her every move. Once she was in the safety of the bedroom, she locked the door and leaned against it, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe this was happening. Fabian, the man behind everything, was now under her roof. She pulled out her phone and stared at Chukwudi's number. She needed to talk to him, to figure out what her next move should be. But before she could dial, Kobe started to open the door. Onome! Kobe's voice came from the other side, soft, concerned. Are you okay? She took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. I'm fine, Kobe. Just needed to freshen up. There was a brief pause before he spoke again. All right, take your time, he said, walking away. She waited until his footsteps faded before she collapsed onto the bed. She was trapped in her own home, surrounded by dangerous men with secrets that could destroy her. She couldn't trust anyone, not even her own husband. And yet, deep down, a part of her still wanted to believe that Kobe wasn't beyond saving. That maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to pull him out of this dark world before it was too late. But as the hours passed and night began to fall, Onome couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. She had to act quickly. The next morning, Onome awoke to the sound of voices drifting up from the living room. Kobe and Fabian were talking again, their tones low and conspiratorial. She lay in bed for a moment, listening, trying to catch snippets of their conversation, but the words were too muffled to make out. She got up, showered, and dressed quickly. Her mind was already working on a plan. She needed to find a way to gather information, something she could use to protect herself if things went south. But she couldn't be too obvious. Fabian was a dangerous man, or is a dangerous man, and any misstep could put her in even more danger. As she descended the stairs, she was greeted by the sight of Fabian, sitting at the dining table, casually sipping coffee. He looked up as she entered, a sly smile playing on his lips. Good morning, madam, he said smoothly. I trust you slept well. Onome forced a smile, even though her stomach was churning. Yes, thank you. I hope you are comfortable here. Fabian nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. Very comfortable, Kobe. Very comfortable, brother. Kobe has been an excellent host. She could feel his gaze lingering on her, making her skin crawl. There was something predatory about him, something that made her uneasy. She needed to get away from him, to find some space where she could think clearly. I have some errands to run today, she said, trying to keep her tone light. I'll be out for most of the day. Fabian's smile widened, and for a moment she thought she saw a flicker of something darker in his eyes. Of course, don't let me keep you. She gave Kobe a kiss and left the house as quickly as she could. She needed to meet with Chukwudi again to figure out her next move. But as she drove out, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every car that appeared in her rearview mirror seemed suspicious. Every pedestrian on the sidewalk seemed to be glancing her way. She finally arrived at the agreed upon meeting spot, a small, nondescript restaurant in heart of the city. Chukwudi was already there, seated at a corner table. Onome slid into the seat across from him. Fabian is staying in my house, she said without preamble. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Chukwudi's eye darkened. That's bad news, Onome. If Fabian is that close, it means he's keeping a tight watch on Kobe. And on you. You need to be careful. I don't know what to do, Onome admitted, her voice trembling. I'm trapped. Chukwudi, I'm trapped. I can't get away from him. Chukwudi reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on hers. You are not alone in this. I'm going to help you. But you need to stay strong. We'll find a way out of this, I promise. His touch sent a jolt of warmth through her, a stark contrast to the cold fear that had gripped her for days. For a moment, she allowed herself to relax, to take comfort in his presence. But then, just as quickly, she pulled her hand away. reminding herself of the danger they were in. Chukwudi leaned back, his expression serious. There's something else you need to know. I'm managing to track down Fatima. She's willing to meet with you, but it has to be done in secret. If Fabian finds out, it could be the end for both of you. Onome nodded. I resolve, adding, I'll do whatever it takes. Chukwudi handed her a slip of paper with an address on it. Go to this location tomorrow. Go there tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Fatima will be there, but be careful, Onome. You are walking a dangerous line. As Onome left the restaurant, her mind was spinning with everything Chukwudi had told her. She was about to meet with someone who could hold the key to unraveling the dangerous web Kobe had entangled them in. But at the same time, she felt something strange, something that she couldn't ignore. It was the growing connection she felt with Chukwudi. A connection that could lead to even more heartbreak and betrayal if she wasn't careful. Watch out for part 3.